Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about specifically uh, Dungeons and Dragons as a narrative event and understanding that it is a narrative event after understanding what a cultural event is in context to a sporting event. All right, so the reason we're talking about this today, so basically what we're talking about today is what is each session of Dungeons and Dragons. And I think each session of Dungeons and Dragons is excuse me, it is a narrative event. And we didn't know this before. And the reason why we know it now is Eurovision. All right, so what is Eurovision? Eurovision is very interesting. So Eurovision is getting a ton of attention right now. It's happening. It's an international competition where European nations enter in singers into competition against other European nations. And it's called Eurovision. It's majorly at scale. It's massively commercial. It's massively popular. It's massively successful. Eurovision is rolling. I am rolling, sir. You know, like they're doing extremely well. And so they were covering them on the New York Times, but that's not the first time I've heard about them this week. I've been hearing about them all over. A ton of different podcasts are covering them. They're really in the zeitgeist right now. And they deserve to be there. They've been doing this for a long time. Now, this got on my radar as a joke. So I watched the Will Ferrell movie, Eurovision. And in America, we don't, again, like, the biggest events in the world in any other country, Americans just are completely oblivious to. And I was oblivious to this, and it's been going on for decades. I didn't even know it existed until Will Ferrell made a movie about it in America, and he just like really mocked it pretty mercilessly and did this really over the top joke about Eurovision. But the movie did really explain exactly what it was. And it put it on, I think it put it on my map, and it put it on a lot of other people's maps. And so, and this is the way everything in the world works now. You do it in another nation for 30 years, and then somebody mentions it in America, and now it matters, right? And that's exactly what happened. I didn't care about Eurovision until I saw Will Ferrell's movie. Now I'm quite interested in it, and I've been listening to a lot of content on it, and it's very interesting. So, you know, yeah, it's like, that's pretty amazing. So Eurovision is a thing. And so the New York Times covered them, and they said, we are the #1 watched cultural event in the world. And I was like, why did they say cultural event, right? And the reason why is I knew immediately why. I was like, oh, they don't beat sporting events. So like the FIFA World Cup probably has way more viewers. The Super Bowl has way more viewers. So sporting events have way more viewers. But they said this is a cultural event. I thought that was really fascinating. I was like, well, that's a great way to tell people exactly what you are. Eurovision is a cultural event. And I think that's very accurate. I think it's great use of language. But it also brings up the question, what is Dungeons and Dragons? All right. And I want to, so what is Dungeons and Dragons? So Dungeons and Dragons is a narrative event. It is an event. Each campaign is an event. Each session is an event. Dungeons and Dragons is a narrative event. The primary ingredient is narrative. There is a story being told by the Dungeon Master, the Dragon Master, and the dice. And 3Ds, right? And they're all of equal importance. And it's extremely important. It's extremely important, right? And so, really fascinating. I found this extremely fascinating. And I think it's very helpful to understand that Dungeons and Dragons is a narrative event. One thing that's interesting is where are those events happening? And I've been paying attention, and I've been really thinking about where Dungeons and Dragons events are happening. And they're happening in 3 places. And there's some alliteration here. Kitchen, convention, conference. All right. So there's 3 types of tables that they're happening at. Kitchen tables, convention tables, and conference tables. Wait a second. I know what a kitchen table is. I know what a convention table is. What the heck's a conference table? Actually, yeah, it's a great point. So what is a conference table? So a conference table is a big 10-foot table, and it has to be assembled, and it costs $1,000 or more. Who's playing on conference room tables? A bunch of people. I did not know this, but I've been thinking a lot about it lately. Conventions are old as dirt. Everybody knows that. And then convention tables, and actually they're plastic, they're 6 feet long, they get dragged out by the staff, and then they get put back, right? Kitchen tables, my kitchen table was 75 years old. My grandmother gave it to my mother, right? And many Dungeons and Dragons games have been played at that kitchen table. But increasingly there's a rise of the conference table. Conference table? What on earth are you talking about, Scott? What do you mean by conference table? It is really interesting. So these are, and I've started to meet quite a few people like this. And I can't believe, I think there's like 1,000 of these. I think there are as many of these as there are FLGSs in America, which means I actually already know there's about 4,000 FLGSs in America. No less than 3,000, but no more than 4, somewhere between 3 and 4. So, and I think there's an equal number of these conference tables. What on earth are you talking about, Scott? Who's playing at a conference room table? So these are gentlemen, mostly men. I think there's a few women, but it's pretty rare. Guys who have dedicated an entire room in their house to Dungeons and Dragons. So they have, the room is often in the basement, right? It's like 15 feet long and about 10 feet wide, maybe 18 feet long by 8 feet wide. Maybe about 18 by 15. And the walls are lined with miniatures. There's a bookshelf with 100 plus tabletop role-playing game books on it. And in the center, there's a table that costs $1,000 or more. Sometimes these are like $5,000, $10,000 gaming tables, right, with felt on them and like slats that get pulled out and dice trays built right in, right? But these are entire rooms, and it's a different level. It's a different level of play. These these conference tables, right? So D&D is played at 3 different types of tables: conference, convention, and kitchen. And each one of these is hosting a narrative event. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.